career, and then had some trouble at home with my mother and father-in-law. I needed to be home and not on the road or on a plane closing business. So I looked at, someone told me about coaching. So I said, I'm not very athletic. And they laughed and said, no, this is business coaching. This is, or personal coaching. And this was quite a number of years ago before I knew what coaching was. Most people didn't. And so I started coaching, and I coached business people. And I did that for a number of years. And about 3 years ago, I read an article about an article that was in the Sports Illustrated. It was written by Mr. Torres. And it said that 78% of all NFL players either declare bankruptcy or have financial stress.
Wow.
2 years after retirement. And I thought, no way. And then I thought, oh, as those people, those guys, they just blow their money, and and I just sort of poo-pooed it. I saw the exact same quote about 2 or 3 months later, and I couldn't poo-poo it that time. I just thought, what? That does not make sense to me. So I took a look, I did a little research, and sure enough, it's a little controversial, but for the most part, I think it's pretty right on. And so I just said, I know how to develop people. I do know that. I know how to do that. And it doesn't matter if you're, a plumber or a CPA or a football player. And so I just started. I started in both feet. I've had several clients now, and I've made a difference because they're young. They're in a predicament that they have not had to deal with before, which is, what do I do now? And and they're kind of in bad shape. So now that's not everybody. That's just I would say about 80%. Though. I'd say about 80%. Not the marquee players, but a lot of those middle range players are in trouble. They don't have enough money. They certainly didn't spend enough time playing their sport.
Wow.
And and they're just they're a little bit dazed. That's what I would say.
A little dazed and confused.
Dazed and confused. Exactly. So that's kind of a little background and how I got started in this with this idea.
So, wow, that's an interesting statistic. I never being I'm 24. I'm an NFL fan, as you are, Jeremiah, and that's hard to. It's not hard to believe, but that's like, wow, I can't believe it. I'm in awe.
I know. I couldn't believe it either.
That's incredible.
And really, the NFL, the NFL says, "Oh, that's not true." And blah, blah, blah.
Well, of course.
But I'll tell you that I've talked to how many guys now? At least 100 over. Well, at least 100 over these past 3 years in research and marketing. My product. And by and large, they all have that same problem. They either are running out of money, or they're soon to run out of money, or they have run out of money. It's just like money's not so great. And a couple of them did well. They saved their money. Oh, I'm thinking of one. He got a good signing bonus. He made okay money the first year. He's about God, how old is he? I'd say he's about 35 now. So it's been, let's say, 10 years since he's been out. But and then he was released 2 years into his contract, it wasn't honored. The contract was not honored. It once they are released, the NFL does not have to pay their
the team or the NFL, the league.
The league. Sorry,
okay.
The league's rule is the teams don't have to pay.
Really? Oh, right. Yeah, because it's like, from what I've, do you know why?
It's
just the rule,
my opinion is the PA did not fight for them.
Okay.
And all other major leagues, they do honor the contract. but not in NFL.
I think the rule is if you're not picked up within a week or something like that by another team, then your contract, at least by the team you were with, doesn't have to. I'm probably wrong. I don't know much of the.
Yeah, there is a certain time limit, but it's very short.
Okay.
It's very short. And it just happened to one who was released the last day, which was I guess about 2 or 3 Sundays ago, maybe 2 or 3 Sundays ago. Yeah. He was he was released, and so far he's not been picked up. And we just talked, and he's like, I just don't think I'm going to be picked up now. So I would release his name, but everyone I talk to, asks that I not talk.
Yeah, of course. So we're not going to pressure you.
Yeah, thank you. It's so funny because it's not like the marquee players. But they still want their privacy, and I respect that.
Well, these players, when you say they're not marquee, because usually the marquee players you could see, Julio Jones just signed a 3-year, $66 million extension over the weekend before the season started. So the marquee players, all their money's, they get their checks eventually. Ezekiel Elliott recently as well. What do you for the guys that don't get recognized for their performance on the field, or for whatever reason they don't, they just don't make it, or they get released earlier in their career or whatever, they're making less money. They're making, more money than, a lot of us back at home will ever see in our life. But at the same time, do you think it's because they're young that they kind of, they get about $2 or $3 million to start, and then they just go spend happy? Or do you think it has to do with, just what do you think is missing in these players' minds?
Yeah. It's a variety of things.
Okay.
And that's why I think in some ways it's hard to pinpoint until you're right, like one-on-one with that person. And then you get, this is his story, right? This is how this is how he spent it, or this is what he got, the truth of what he got. Now, so the last time I looked, the mid-range guys got 1.2. That's what their contract is, 1.2. And it's and just take half of that, so it's about 600,000. And that's what they get, because they get taxed. They get taxed in every state they play.
Oh, boy.
They also, then when you think about if they're injured, they don't have, and they've played 1 or 2 years, they do not have medical insurance. So, they do while they're playing, but it's dropped when they're waived, right? When they're dropped, everything's dropped in those early years. So that $500,000, even if they didn't spend anything, is probably gone because of injury.
Jeez.
Over time. That's over the lifetime of a particular injury. Now, that's not always the truth. That's just sometimes. That's why I say sometimes it's different things, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sometimes the guys will go out and they'll buy a house, or that's whatever it is. They'll buy their mother a house.
Yeah.
They'll sometimes their entourage, and I don't mean entourage in the fancy way of entourage. I mean just their family has their hand out. Sometimes they're the ones that made the money in the family.
Yeah.
So that goes out, and it does not last long.
Yeah.
The NFL, not for long, is a very cute acronym, I think, for the money that's in their hand. And, you got to get really, these guys think they're going to play at least 4 or 5 years, and they don't. They play 1 or 2.
Do you know
and the average is 3.3 in the NFL.
Wow. Jeez.
Average. So you've got the Bradys.
And then you have the other ones.
They skew the average, so a lot of them are like 1 or 2 years. And they were on the bench. And that's the other thing is psychologically, now I'm not a therapist, so I'm a coach, right? But
right.
So I hate to even use that word psychology. So just erase that from your thoughts. But they have lots of trouble with purpose, identity, when they were the best in the world at what they did. really, like a small number of people, guys, could do what they do or did. And then oftentimes on the bench or once or twice playing and, going to practices, getting toned every day. I mean, taking it pretty seriously. This is their job. And then they're released and not picked up anywhere. And so when I say released, I mean they weren't picked up, right?
Yeah.
They were released and not picked up. So I'm not sure shock is the right word, but they're a little discombobulated.
Yeah.
So and they're all over the map. Some, want to have dreams of, well, they all have dreams of playing still, like that they got to get through that. Some much faster than others. Some guys have, because they've either had families that talk to them about it, or they had a coach maybe in college or professionally even that really helped them with, okay, what are you going to do after the sport? But then a lot of them, that's all they know to do.
Yeah.
And that's all they know themselves to be, which is even harder to get. But that's why, they hire me.
Out of curiosity, so you mentioned, okay, do these guys have a plan? Like, do you think it's two questions? This is a two-part question.
Sure.
So do you believe, or is there a way that some of these players who, either are late round draft picks and aren't guaranteed to make the teams they get drafted to, or then get, some people tell them, hey, you might be on the practice squad your whole career, or at least for the foreseeable future, that kind of thing, where these guys are getting paid, bottom of the barrel.
Yes.
Do you think that it's good for them to, enter the draft, and understand, hey, this is what I want, this is my dream, but to have a plan B? And then that's one. Do you think a plan B right off the bat is a good way to look at it, even if they are a first, second, or third round player? Because I know the Brown over here in Cleveland, the Browns offensive lineman that just got ejected out of the game the other day, Greg Robinson, he was the number 2 overall pick a couple years ago, and then he just underperformed and battled injuries and was released from where he got drafted. I believe it was Carolina a couple years back. But anyway, and then we gave him a second chance, and now he's playing. But anyway.
But then now he's back to sort of underperforming. Then he kicks someone in the head.
He just, it's looking
I did
like
not hear that. Wow.
Yeah, some of our guys lack discipline. But anyway, so do you think it's smart for a plan B? And then do you think I just lost my train of thought. I literally did. But anyway, we'll start there. Maybe it'll come to me.
All right, great. Yeah, I absolutely believe Plan B. Now, this is the thing about it. Like, well, then why not Plan B, right?
Right.
Because there's a couple things. One is there's a tremendous force. Like in this case, I pick on the NFL because it actually has the worst statistics, but they're all pretty bad. Okay, but the NFL is a huge entity to deal with when you're 20 years old.
Yeah.
It's 22. It's a lifetime of, God, if you do this, if you make it to the NFL, if you make it to the pros, you've made it. There's just moms, dads, agents, Pop Warner even, when they're kids, they often show extreme talent. And, and they're picked and they love it and they love the game. And it's I don't know, it's like who they are.
Yeah.
So to start talking or thinking for most of them about Plan B, it's just a little bit, it's not easy to do.
Oh, of
it's
course.
It's just not an easy thing to do.
Especially for their psyche.
Yeah, exactly.
And
then just think about the coaches, pro coaches, at all levels, but the pro coaches, in the different positions, right, that are on the field, at training camp, on the combine, on the practice fields, back when they're, in the locker rooms and in the workrooms, they all their focus, all their attention is on how to be better, how to be in better shape, how to know those plans like the back of their hand, how to know exactly who they're going to be in front of and what they need to do. So there's just a ton of attention and focus on that. And then when they get home, or they've got a day off, or they got whatever, that sometimes they have that week off, they just really have to just relax, like just pull everything down, so that they can get right back up and be most productive when they come back. So to have it like a second career or have a second thought about what's next, there's just not a lot of oxygen for that kind of idea to come up.
Right.
That's actually one of the reasons why I like the guys, if at all possible, to use my services, at least in the beginning, somewhat, not all the time when they're playing, but in the off season, use my services so they get themselves a stronghold or an anchor in an area that they're interested in. The second reason for doing it while they're playing is while they're playing, they have influencers that they touch every week. So they go to fundraisers, they go to different parties. They are young men, so they'll often go, okay, where are the girls and where's the booze and where's the food, right? But it's just like we did when we were in college. I mean, certainly. I mean, I didn't look for the girls.
Yeah, but now they have the money to.
They have the money, and they often are treated things. So it's like not a big deal. But and people will return. The point is, the people will return their calls. Will want them to come to the office. Will want them to have lunch with them, and it's there that they can really make some great connections and relationships. And that's one of the things I get them to do right away. Is, okay, next time you're a party, half the time go have a good time, half the time meet three new people that could actually influence you when you're out. Well, I don't know what that means. Okay, so then we go through who they're going to think they're going to see, and then I say, okay, what do you say? I don't know, Lorinda, what to say. Okay, good. Let's just do a role play. So it doesn't take a lot. It really does not take a lot. It just takes something. And since I've developed people for over 18 years, I just know how to do this. So I've been doing it with business people for a long time.
You mentioned earlier about the NFLPA, the Players Association. Do you think they should do more of like a, when it comes to these younger players who are getting paid less, who have the, aspirations, the dreams, the drive to... the goal to make more money, and kind of, do you think it's their job to tell them, hey, at the end of the day, it's cool. You want to win rings. You want to, win MVP. You want to be defensive, offensive player of the year. You want to be the starting quarterback, starting linebacker. That's great. Well, at the end of the day, this is a business. Do you think that's up to the NFLPA? Because I've heard people kind of say, okay, in terms of like players developing attitude over their career.
Yes. Over
the way they've been treated. Like great example is the recent developments with Antonio Brown. Do you think, it's up to them to kind of say, hey, at the end of the day, you're kind of an employee and you work for a company that oversees other minor companies that are under them. You know what I mean? Do you think it's kind of them to give them, is it up to the NFLPA to give them a little taste of reality? Yeah. Do you think?
So just, I'm a little bit sometimes on top of the PA too, okay? But I think that, yes, it does. Now, but in their defense, okay, they don't see it so much as their role. Agents don't see it as their roles. Business managers don't see it as their role. That's why they're slipping through the cracks. That's why there's no net for them. Now, there is a very good point of view. I don't agree with it, but it's very strong. So I don't mean good, I mean strong point of view that, come on, you guys, what, you need this too? There's a thing like we don't want to, you're a little entitled here, right? But a little bit. So, but what I want to say is these middle range guys, they're the ones that are protecting the marquee players, right?
Yeah.
They're the ones that are throwing their body, and they'll do it with no problem. You know what I mean? They will do it, but they're kind of like I don't know. I wish I had an analogy. Maybe you guys can help me. They're just like the human sacrifice or something so that those high-paying, multi-million-dollar contracts are protected. It's almost like they're thrown away like pawns.
Well,
we'll give away some of these pawns. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It came right to my head when you said it, like an analogy for it.
Yeah.
So you look at the Patriots and you look at Tom Brady.
Yeah.
I view the marquee players as the offensive linemen, and the marquee players are Tom Brady. And Tom Brady is representing all of them, and the offensive linemen are protecting him. When you said that, that was the first thing that came to my mind was this guy's great, and he's being protected by these marquee guys, which are the offensive linemen that don't get much credit.
Right.
That was something that popped in my mind.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I have in the past used Tom Brady. Great player. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing against Tom on.
Oh, yeah.
Or any of the marquee players. Good for them. Really good for them.
Yeah.
And the way it's designed, the way their positions are designed, and the roles they play is you keep Tom freed up from any hurt for as long as you possibly can. So he can make the passes and et cetera, but also that he's protected.
Yeah.
Period. I mean, whether he makes that pass or not, you do everything, so he's not touched. So anyway, there's that. I'm not exactly sure where that went. Anyway, I think I made my point. But thank you for that. Thank you for the.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I made you lose your train of thought. But
that's perfect. Yeah.
But one of my questions is, do you think that when it comes to, do you think there should be more of a level playing field between the marquee players and the middle players when it comes to, let me see how I'm going to ask this. Based off of, should it be based off of performance, or should it be based off of, I mean, technically it already is based off of performance. I mean, if you perform well, you get the money. If you don't, then you get either benched or released. So do you think, here's where I was going. It's also, there's that, and then there's also that the league is now, and a lot of pro sports are like this, especially basketball has went this way. Do you believe that, because we're seeing a shift now from the league controls the league to now the players are starting to tell organizations, hey, if you don't do this, I want to be released. Hey, if you don't pay me the money, I'm going to go somewhere else.
So almost like the Miami Dolphins.
The Miami Dolphins.
Reporting that several players want to get out now.
Yeah, Antonio Brown. You have Melvin Gordon with the LA Chargers. Do you think that's healthy moving forward in the future of pro sports? Do you think it's healthy to have the players have, at least they're now requesting or telling, they're kind of putting their foot down? Do you think that's a healthy thing, or do you think it's kind of dangerous for the league?
And just dangerous in what regard? I would love to know, because I haven't really thought about it. It's a good question.
Yeah, because it's interesting, because in the NBA you have 5 players that start the game. You have one main guy, LeBron James of the world, the Kobe Bryants of the world, the Shaquille O'Neals of the world. But in the NFL, you have a collective. And yes, there are those marquee players, as we've talked about, but ultimately it's more of a team. You have an offense and defense. made up of multiple players. Do you think that one guy going, like a running back, saying, hey, I loved playing for you guys. You know, my contract's up next year. Right now you're paying me $4 million a year. I want to get paid $20 million a year. Next year, oh, we only want to pay you 11. Well, I'm sure somebody will pay me 20. Do you think it's kind of threatening them? Because that's how I view it. It's kind of like a player kind of threatening the organization. But even though the organization has the money, like, oh, yeah, we have the money to pay him, we just don't want to.
Yeah.
It's two sides. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, you know, it's a good question, because it's a good question in terms of just, you know, it's very much a market-driven economy. In in the economy we as U.S. citizens play in.
Yeah.
And so, you know, one side of me says, well, you know, if they can get that amount of money, if they've looked at, well, here's my position, here's my role, here's what the player, this is what I've gotten, this is what other players get.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Maybe I could try it. But pretty much there, I would imagine let's look at the NFL or the NBA, either one. You know, they have, I think a large tsunami would have to alter dramatically from 4 million to 20 million.
Right.
Something would have to alter dramatically for that particular player role to get that much more.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I think that he would not. The other teams would not engage. This is my hunch, unless he was super. Then there's the value.
But even some of those better players now, like in the NBA, LeBron, as he gets older, takes pay cuts for better players to be able to come play with him.
Right.
You know, and so there's that technique that he uses.
Option. Right.
But then, you know, in the NFL, it's kind of different because, and I'm seeing it a little more with running backs like Ezekiel Elliott, Melvin Gordon. These guys are telling their teams that drafted them, you know, gave them the opportunity to be in the NFL. Not that anybody else wouldn't, but, you know.
Again, it depends on their level, right, too.
Yeah.
It's very much market-driven, you know, like it's like everything, right? And at some point, and these teams, the statistic information they have on these teams, you know, that the teams have now, is phenomenal. So they have algorithms on, you know, how long they think they'll last, on how long, you know, it's all business, baby.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And of course the guys, as you pointed out earlier, most don't get that. They don't even know the distinction until they do. I just talked to somebody maybe a month ago, and he said, you know, I went to 7 teams, moved the family 7 times. And he wasn't even complaining about it. That's my voice that you're hearing, not his voice. But I said 7 times.
Yeah.
Are you really married? And you had to actually move. He says, well, 5 times I moved my wife, and 3 times I moved my children. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So and he said, I was just never. I was I got into injuries, and said it breaks my heart. But I just couldn't do it anymore. It sounded a little bit like luck. When he left. Just said, I can't do it anymore. Anyway, there's that whole thing too, because then they're in pain for a long time.
Yeah.
And then all that brings too. Sometimes pain meds are a problem. Sometimes, different meds are a problem to these guys once they get out. And that's just another issue they have to deal with when they go. So, but to answer a good question, I just think that it probably won't happen. There'll be grumbling. Maybe someone will get, or a couple guys will get on another team. But, you know, those teams, they want a player. They want to make sure that they are getting their value. So that's what I can say. And I can't imagine paying somebody a $4 million contract and the next year's paying somebody like, I don't know, 20 or 11. Unless they were outstanding, then it's like, okay, they'll fit in some algorithm that the team has gotten together.
Well, some of these players just like Elliott was drafted 4 years ago, Jeremiah? 4 or 5?
I want to say it was
4.
Within the top 5 somewhere.
4 years ago, though. He was drafted in the top. He was drafted like 4th overall.
Yeah.
His rookie contract, which is a 3 or 4 year contract to start off, that's expiring at the end of this year.
Yeah.
So he can be a free agent.
Yeah.
And Dallas was like, no, we want you. And he was saying, well, here's my price tag.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And
that's a different, in my listening, that's a different thing then. If they're wanted, just like they said, the Dallas Cowboys want them. So then they're
and that's what I've been trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah. And negotiate. Well, how bad?
Yeah. Because their agents are, the agents, and that's another thing that always interested me about pro sports, is that agents, they're your, in a sense, they're your personal salesman.
Correct.
You're the car, and they're trying to build you up to the people, to the team. And, sometimes the team is just like, hey, we've seen this song and dance with another player before. He may be great on the field, but will he show up to practice?
Right.
Is he taking, is he doing steroids? Is he, smoking marijuana? Or is he completely engaged in the team and what we need him to do? Are we taking a risk? Does the reward outweigh the risk? Does the risk outweigh the, vice
Both
versa?
ways, yeah.
So, it factors into a lot of things. Josh Gordon being one of those great examples. How many years he's been, on that roller coaster of, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? Is he going to be suspended or not? And then now he's back. And I mean, it's only been 1 week.
Do you pay him or don't you?
Yeah. Do you pay him? Do you don't pay him? Do we know? It's kind of a big question mark every year. But,
Yeah. I go back to what people out here, out as fans or whatever that are, the fans, that they're really they have an opinion. So there's a lot of opinion about how much these guys get paid too.
Yeah.
And the truth of it is, yes, they're getting paid over most 25-year-olds, right? They're totally getting paid way over that. But then again, they are the best at what they do at that.
Yeah.
You look at how many teams there are, 32? There's certain teams. There's, how many players play that position. And that's a few, but that's over millions of people, boys playing football.
Yeah.
Over years. So it's really the best of the best. And so the best of the best, even when you're 25 in like business, they're making lots of money.
Yeah.
Best of the best.
Well, you got to factor in.
So
I'm sorry.
It's not like you and me. I worked for a financial agency, making, I don't know, $4, $3 an hour, $4 an hour. You know what I mean? So that's mostly with college. And that's also another problem they have with money is one guy was saying, the last job I had was over the summer and it was $25 an hour, which is a decent amount of money when you're young. But then his first check was $250,000. So it's a little hard to go back to $25 an hour spending. So they, that's how a lot of the money goes too, is they just do not know how to budget, how to work it, and the value that is for them to be conscious of what they're spending, much like a lotto and lottery winners.
Yeah.
They have that problem too. That it gets like way outside their norm. And so they're like, oh my God, I've just won the, right? And they have, but not for long. I mean, it really does not last that long. And what why I did this, yes, I saw a market, right? Yes, I saw a very specialized market. The other thing is, yes, I think I could make some money on this? Yes, I do think I can make money on my time. Yes. But the biggest thing that keeps, I mean, I still have a few business clients that I coach. So I could go and do that easily. The players are a little harder to access, by the way, just from your point of view, my point of view, than the business people. But the athletes are really in such need. It just pulls me as someone who develops people. But the reason I really love doing it is I do feel in my heart of hearts that these guys are the business leaders. And I mean that, business leaders in their community and their business, like they're leaders. They're trained to lead. They're trained to do everything they can to protect leadership and give that 150% to something, and to work individually, like they know their role, but also as a team.
Yeah.
You mentioned the NFL, particularly the NFL, because it's a team sport, the NFL. I mean, so they're all sports, really. But you can really see that when the team works together like a machine, it's remarkable. So I see them having that ability. And the truth of it is they're a bit kicked to the curve. So, I think, oh my God, no, if they weren't kicked to the curb, think of the opportunities their communities could have. Think of what they could become.
Yeah.
And the only kind of stronghold they have a little bit, not all, I said a little bit, I was hedging my communication here, but they think, oh, well, maybe I can be in the media for the sport, or I can sell clothes in the sport, or, I can own my own company in this sport. And there's very few who make it. That the marquee players all get sponsorships and blah, blah, blah. But those middle guys don't. And they're not, the media doesn't usually want them. The media wants the marquee players. They can speak well. And it's about, there's been a statistic, there's about 3% that are hired. So it's not, they've got these dreams that are really not for them. Or if they are for them and they're like, let's say they say to me, Lorena, I want to do that. Then we get them in a very rigorous program to do that. They just can't do it because they will it to be, right? Or they want it to be. No, they have to work just as hard as they worked to be on a pro team, but just in some other, venue and some other occupation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Jeremiah, do you have any questions?
Well, that's sort of surprising because, like, somewhat going a little bit back, I never really thought about that. About each, state they play in, they get taxed in it.
Yeah.
I would have never thought that.
Well, that was one reason a couple of years ago, if you remember Dwight Howard in the NBA. When he signed with Houston after being with Orlando, one of the main factors to why he signed his big deal is they don't have state tax. So, I
didn't know that.
No, there's a certain state tax they don't have, and he didn't, they had some sort of less, like a smaller tax on his check. So it was.
Who was this? Where did he play?
He played for the Houston Rockets.
Houston. Okay.
And in 2014, he signed there, and he stayed there, something like that. And he ended up being there for like 2 or 3 years, and then he got hurt, and they traded him. But anyway, that was originally one of the main. Like, he had the exact same offer from like 3 or 4 different teams, and he chose Houston. And it's just kind of those little factors that you don't really think about. You think these guys want to win, but ultimately at the end of the day, it is a business. And I mean, I personally will sit here and tell you, if I was a Kobe Bryant, if I was a Tom Brady, and you offered me a bad team, but you're paying me $200 million over 5 years, you best believe I'm coming there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're paying me more now to play for the Browns or the, you're out of California, correct?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, so
I'm in the middle of the state.
Play,
mostly I'm in Los Angeles, though.
Okay, but to play for the, give me $2 million for 2 years to play for the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to do that. No, I'll go take or $2 million to play for the Lakers. I don't really, winning for me is not, and it as important as financial stability and having the freedom of, spending my dollar wherever.
Yeah. Yes, that's very true.
But some people,
some
are the other
have
way.
choices like that, and a lot don't.
Yeah,
they're just happy to get drafted. They're happy to play for a professional team. Those are the guys. They have a little choice, but they've had a little choice, but most did not. Really amazing. They kind of went where they were picked up.
Do you think so? Now, some people would say, like, talking to you or hearing about, your coaching and what you do, seeing these players, having this passion that you have for them and their personal, how they spend their way of living, in their betterment financially, and their betterment, in a lot of ways psychologically, and their betterment of, moving on and realizing, certain ways to improve their life outside of the sport, because of certain situations. Some people would be like, hey, they're just, I only make 40 grand a year. These guys are rich, so who cares?
Yeah.
Some people would say that.
Yeah, of course.
So what is your response to people who would say, who cares about them? They make twice as much as I'll ever make in my life, or 3 times as much as I'll ever make. I don't like them. What's your response to that?
Well, first of all, I understand. I get it completely. I really do. I get it. It's in sports. So, there's a lot of people that say, God, they're in sports. Right. They're not making even any difference.
They're on TV all the time,
too.
That kind of.
Right. I mean, right. But truthfully, when it comes down to the bottom line, right? I really love supporting people. I know how to do it. I know how to take somebody from A to Z, so that they're making more money, they're happier. These are business people, and they're happier, and they have fuller lives. Like they're not just maybe in the office all the time. I get some like that, right? So I like developing people, and I see there is a hole here. They have everything. Many of them lose everything in an instant, and it's kind of like that. And maybe they don't lose it all, but within the year it's gone.
Yeah.
So now what? And guess where they are? They're in a car wash. I'm serious. They're in car washes. Going to Denver for a course. By the way, I'm going to be leading a course in Denver on the 21st. There's a couple of guys there that are pulling weeds. These are the guys now that are retired. They're it's not nearly as glamorous as all that glamour is when you see them on Sunday mornings or Sunday afternoons. Like it's not that. They're like, and for instance, a woman called me, a friend of a friend of a friend. She said, I think you can help me. I'm not even sure. My husband was released about 8 months ago. This was about a year and a half ago, 8 months ago. And he's been on the sofa for all that time with the clicker, watching TV. I've been a good wife. I've been a bad wife. I've thrown everything at the book, in the book at him, and he's still not up off that sofa. I talked with him for 5-10 minutes, maybe a half hour, and he said, "Well, this is really what I want to do." I'm like, "Okay." He's going to tell me. He says, "I want to be an attorney." And I said, "Great. Well, how much schooling have you had?" And he's like, "You're not laughing?" I'm like, "No, I'm not laughing." How much time have you had? He says, "Everybody I've talked to said, oh, no, don't be silly. That's not going to happen to you." So, he is now a senior. He's got to do that LSATs. He's got to take the LSATs. He's studying for the LSATs. I think he won't be doing the LSATs until February, but he's on his way. It didn't take long. I think it cost altogether maybe $500 for him.
My God.
I have a cadre of people I work with, including a college counselor, and she helped him, got him, set up. went to the school, called the school with him, helped him on his way. He's fine. And every once in a while I check with her, and she's like, no, he's doing really well, no problem. I check with him about once a term, and yeah, and that's how I found out he's now studying. There's study groups for the LSATs, so. He's on his way. So that's just one story of one that didn't cost him much, didn't cost me a lot of time. It just needed to be listened to and pushed in the right direction.
How old?
And he's on his own.
He?
He's not getting support. He's not, he's on his own doing that. And his wife, and then I had the conversation with his wife, and she says, oh yeah, I work. I can support him. We can pull our lifestyle down. So it was a team effort as well, but it didn't cost him that much. And she saw it wasn't going to cost her family that much to get him started. So that's one example that I love, because it's not like, oh, we found a business for him and now he's making $4 million a year. No, but he's on his way for a good career. And the other thing too that I think we all forget sometimes is these guys are young. They're 25, 20.
Hello? So I guess we're going to have that little random technical difficulty. Blanking in that on a second. Let's see something.
No, it's kind of. I think there's some sort of cut.
But here, we'll do this. Go back to this in just a second.
No, it's coming from her. Well, hello.
Hello?
Coming more from her end, I think.
Let's see. Is she going to call us in just a second? She's typing. Yeah, because I was actually going to go ask that kind of question in a way. I keep getting disconnected. Can you try again? Okay. Here we go. Ooh.
It's bad reception here.
Yeah.
Just bad reception here. But yeah, no, you do talk about it. It is crazy to think about.
Yeah, most definitely.
Some of these guys don't have any direction financially, and they just end up ruining their lives early on because they don't know how to save money. But a lot of people, me being one of them, being that person that's, you get $200. Let's just say that was how much you get paid. I need someone to discipline me to say, hey, keep 50 and save 150. That kind of thing, But anyway.
Most definitely. That's why I wanted to sort of ask in the aspect that she was talking about before.
I kind of wanted to ask her if she tells any of these guys to invest. Because that's a way to save money and also invest it in something in stocks. Put it somewhere where it's going to be useful eventually.
Not including I was going to go the whole thing of with especially the ones that they have the college degree or they sort of have it, but they didn't finish it.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to that was actually sort of the line that she was sort of going that I wanted to sort of butt in. Let's try this one more. We might have fixed it. Hello?
Hello.
Oh,
There we
we're
go.
back. There we go.
yeah. It's still doing weird stuff, but just hold on.
It's
I
all
can
good.
hear it wants to connect, and it's unhappy as heck. And hold on.
Yeah, he just wants to play funny since it's early in the morning.
Yeah. Wow. What happened here?
That's technology for you.
Completely out of the headset. It's coming. Okay. It's not
But
connected.
yeah,
Okay, guys, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear the other voice coming through? It says, please connect to Jabra Evolve.
No.
No. Okay. Well, I must have two channels going on at the same time. I have no idea what I'm doing. Okay. Are we done, or did you have more questions? Or
I don't have any more.
Well, I
you
want
do.
to sort of go off because that's what I was sort of going to ask with, you know,
go ahead. Go ahead.
with the whole thing. So, like how you were saying, him going out of law school, I was sort of going to ask, you know, with those that retire, you know, some they have their, you know, 4-year bachelor degree or some sort. Some, you know, they sort of had that, you know, maybe 2-3 years into college and
Correct.
that. Is it any sort of ones that decide, well, since I'm sort of retired, I want to go back and sort of finish what I did to start doing, whether they want to start their own business or, you know, etc.
Yeah, and if they want to start their own business, I can help them. So I've had several come up to me and say, "Oh, my cousin one particularly. I had a cousin who, Lorinda, all he wants is $1 million." That's the other cute thing, right? All he wants is $1 million, and we're going to create these bands for concerts, and it's just going to be a killer. And he's got some connections and blah 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 blah. I said, and he's like so thrilled. It feels like it sounds like he just invented a way to slice bread. Right. And
Yeah.
I said, wait a second, you mean the colored things that have been around for about 30 years? He said, well, yeah, but they're going to be so cool, Lorinda. It's going to, I said, are they going to be electronic? Or I don't quite understand. No, they're just the ring, and then acting like I'm really not very cool, apparently. I said, no, I go to concerts. I know what those are, but they're not that special. I mean, they were special when they came out.
Yeah.
That was a long, long, long time ago. So he insisted. So I finally said, do you mind if I get on the call with your cousin? No, don't mind. Okay, great. So we went and had that conversation. Yep, nothing clearer came to the forefront. And I said, do you have a business plan? I'd love to see it. I won't charge you for it. I'll just take a look at it. No, we don't have a business plan. Okay. Do you have somebody that's going to help you with the money? No, don't have anybody with the money. Except for my cousin, my friend here, my cousin here, he's got the $1 million, and that's all we'll need. And I said, okay, great. So I got off the phone and talked with the athlete and said, it is your money. You have the option to do whatever you want with your money, but I promise you, you will not have that money after a few months. And you will not be able to get your money back on that deal. And so he didn't do it, but I have, which is great. And he did something else, and we worked together, and he got a little franchise, and he's doing fine. And
Nice.
He's building like most people do when they're in their 20s. He's building. So and that's the other thing is a lot of people say to these guys, "Oh, this is basketball money. This is football money." No, Vernon Davis, you guys know Vernon Davis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he got in a bad deal. What was it? 17 NFL players got together with by the way, a real estate guy, money guy that was approved by the PA, by the way. And they took 17 of these players. I think it was 43 million, something like that. Invested in a casino in Alabama. It was on 60 Minutes. And they got the money. It all was gone. The first day, big opening. Within a week, I think it was the feds, but it could have probably been the state, came in and locked it up and said there cannot be any gambling in Alabama. Why? It's illegal.
Wow.
So a very elementary question could have been asked, but no, the agent kept saying, the not agent like in football agent, but the guy that was the financial advisor, real estate advisor, said, "Oh no, all is good. No, there's no problem. We need is the money. You're gonna end up getting football money. It's gonna be so good." Yeah, there wasn't any competition because it was illegal.
Huh.
And
Wow.
they lost every penny. I mean, it was on 60 Minutes, October 2017 or 18, where that. And then Vernon just said, "Well, that's my fault. That's on me. I got to do better on my vetting." Now he could still play. He has money coming in, but he said not a lot of the other guys. That was their money. That was their savings. That was their. So it's gone. So that also happens. They've been. They didn't do their due diligence.
Yeah.
I like to put the responsibility really on their shoulders, but the truth is they're used. But that's their money. They have a say. They need to vet or have somebody they trust really well to vet for them.
Yeah.
And not do it like, "Oh, my eyes are closed." No, teach me what to look for. So that's what the other thing is. I teach guys what to look for and how to vet. So it's a full-time deal over here. And it's all kinds of, like I said, there's all kinds of different issues these guys have when they come. Yeah, I interrupted. I'm sorry.
No, I'm
Okay.
No, you didn't interrupt.
no.
Oh, I thought it. Okay. All right.
No.
And I do have a book that I wrote called Star Power in Retirement. It's a little tiny, 30-page book, but it kind of identifies what the problems are, what I think are some of the solutions, and also just some practice things the guys can use just to get them started, and a plan. I mean, much like what's the plan B if you're still playing, and if you're not playing and you're not fulfilling yourself, then give me a call. We can talk, and I can get you on a plan with me or a plan with somebody else, or you can do your own plan and check with me every once in a while. So there's all kinds of plans that I have ways to participate with me. And I also have this course that's on the 21st in Denver, and it's going to be college and pro guys. Mostly football, so they're been released. They're not playing, obviously, now. But so that's the other thing I want to do. And I'm also working with the NFL Wives Association. So I'll be doing that, working with them in the future. We're starting conversations, and I might have some lunch and learns with the women that are, married to these guys that have families and that are going through a lot of the disappointment and heartache and change that takes place when your husband is released from a team. So I'm doing
That's
that.
the funny thing is those were the two things also I was sort of thinking of that I was going to ask
What?
about the book, because I seen that and sort of read a little bit into it. The non-including yet. Do you have any certain things with the wives of the players?
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. She was reading my mind.
Oh, yeah. I'm just starting. It's so funny because the last couple of clients I've had, I've worked with the wives almost as much. And that's what had me start like, well, wait a minute, Lerna, there's a whole group of people here that make a huge difference to, what's the spending of the family, the relationships in the family, the responsibility when the guys are on the road. So there's a whole market here that I had not touched and nobody touches. I mean, there's a
many
couple
people would even think of it at first.
Yeah, and it was only because I'm in it, right? I'm in it and I'm talking and I'm like, oh. And one woman was like, I can't spend the money I used to spend. And, we had to deal with that. I mean, we didn't have to deal with it, but she chose to deal with it. She's like, I don't want to be the grabber. She said, I used to not even worry about go to Chanel and on Rodeo, but now I have to. And I'm like, yeah. And I tease and, oh yeah, Kohl's, they've got the cash back at Kohl's.
Sure.
And, they're just, when we have a good time and there's shame about it, there's just a lot to deal. And I also have therapists in my cadre of support. So when I see that it's more therapy, then they would go to my therapist. No, I would recommend that my therapist, they can go wherever they want. But sometimes I can see this is a little deeper than I know to go to. So
it's more not completely your forte. So you send it to the right person.
Exactly. Yeah. In fact, in many ways, I think that's where my strengths are, is I can assess pretty fast and then hand off. So, and then of course, if there really is like, well, I want to start my own business, or I'm looking at a franchise. Well, I have people that are franchise connectors, several, in fact. Yeah. And I said, and get me on the phone too with you. I want to just be in at least the initial conversations. Because I don't want to have anybody in my cadre that I don't trust. So, I'm there. And then if they want further, some franchise have the whole package. They'll give you everything: the software, the trainings, the everything, and the ongoing support in that particular field. And sometimes they don't. And if that's the case, I offer my services as business services as well to help them become better business people. So, like I was trying to get the guys, the cupcake guys. Oh, I can't remember now. They were on. Is it Microsoft? Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I've lost.
What was it? Peppers and who was it? The cupcake guys.
They were on the. I'm sure it was the NFL. Yeah. This last NFL Super Bowl, right?
Yeah. What was it? It was, I thought, Peppers and who was the other dude? I'm blanking on that. I know who she's talking to. I know the two. I know, was it Julius Peppers? And it was somebody else. I don't remember. I know the one at least.
Yeah. Hey, my phone keeps breaking out. Huh. I did not hear you.
Well.
Are you there?
Yeah.
You're there. Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
so
Julius Peppers, and it was somebody else. I don't remember who the other dude was.
Yeah. Well, I walked over to my file and to pick it out, and my phone kind of did a little funny thing. So I think it's time for a new iPhone.
Yeah, they're about to roll that out here soon.
Right? That's what I think so. Oh,
my boss is looking into one of those, so yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to think of what else the viewers might want to know. Oh, the other thing is, I don't feel sorry for these guys. I just don't. I mean, they are in unfortunate positions, some of them, but I really hold it that everybody can pull themselves up, everybody. And I've worked with an autistic, high on the spectrum, but an autistic young person a while ago. This is not an athlete. And she got herself out of bed. She got herself somebody to drive her. She got it. I just think if she can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah.
And there was God, I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm not prepared with that. But who was the guy that's the coach? I think he's a high school coach, but he has no arms and no legs.
Oh,
and he was,
yeah.
He was in the ESPN magazine.
I know who you're saying, but
yeah, I don't know his name.
But he's a coach. He's a football coach, and you read that article and you're like, okay, there's not any more excuses about anything with this guy showing up for work every day,
right.
Whatever he has to do to get himself up, and he just all he wanted was to play foot, not play, but be in football somehow, and that's how he was born without legs and arms. So, and and he's coached when they were young, obviously, coaches and other players that are prominent in the NFL, and I think and in NBA as well. So, you just are. I'm inspired by the kind of the motivational types of people that are in the sports, and I use as much as I can with the motivation as well, because a lot of that is they have to get up off the couch. They have to get like, okay, it is over. But that's the other thing. Oh, good. I'm glad I hit upon that. It's my point of view. It's not over. It's just starting. They can use the NFL or the NBA or the NHL or the MLB. They can use their sport to get what they want in their life, because the sport is not going to last a long time. Very few, so few. And so how can we leverage yourself with the sport so that you're getting yourself a boost from the other 25-year-olds? Well, one thing is the executives of all the companies in the town will call you back.
Yeah. Especially if your name's out there and all that. Yeah, they'll definitely. Hello? I think
5-year-olds will get a call back from an executive.
Yeah.
So anyway, and so I really have them see their power out in the world for themselves.
Yeah.
So so they get motivated that way too. And as a coach, I don't know if you've ever used a coach, but it's I hold them to account. We talk about what their obstacles are and their barriers are, and we go right after it. Like, okay, that's where you stop. Great. I want you to talk to 3 people this week, and talk to them about that exact thing. Start with me. Let's do a role play right now. So it's like immediate. There's no thinking about. There's no, maybe next week. No, it's right now. And they're on their feet right now. And some do brilliantly, and some struggle, but that's okay.
Everyone learns at their pace.
Exactly. I remember when I was in sales, I was in sales training for Pitney Bowes. Do you remember that? I think they still do stamp machines, but they used to do a variety of things. And they have a huge center in Atlanta. And I was there with about 25 other people. I was probably 23 or 4. And I was the laughing stock. I mean, I really was. It's like I sound now. I mean, I stuttered, I didn't remember, and I said a lot. And I got reviews from my colleagues, my peers, like, oh, she stutters. She's never going to be successful. I mean, awful. I cried in the shower. Those places where you go, you just cry. You're just like, I cannot do this. My mother would hate it if she knew this is what happened. Like that. Mm-hmm. And so, but the next year I was invited back to be an instructor because I was, of all the people, I had the best sales. So they're like, whatever you did, it worked in the field. It worked where it needed to work. So because I've had that experience, I know that sometimes these guys might start off hard. It might be hard for them. But I know if I could learn how to be a tough salesman woman in the machine business when I did, and there were no women in it, it was all men, anybody can do anything. I guess and I experienced that. I experienced you just want it. You can.
Oh, absolutely.
You get it. So anyway.
It's just having a drive to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And And then they they're again, because they make it, I really hold it that they can then be the leaders showing all kinds of kids they can do it, their examples. Young men and women look up to them. I don't care if they're they don't have to be a name player. If they're known in the community as playing professional ball, they'll have an authority and a respect from the young people, and that's another gift that they have to give their community and into business. So I really do think that's to answer that one question about why these guys. I just think they're a very special group, and and I have a lot of passion about it.
You can definitely tell.
Yeah, And I got it. I totally get what people say, and I said it. I said it the first time I saw the statistic. They're just throwing their money away, But
True.
I couldn't stop the chatter in my head when I heard it a second time. I just couldn't stop. I thought, no, something's wrong here. If that really is true, they make all these millions of dollars. The first thing I found out is they don't make millions, but what's the problem? Yeah, I found out lots of problems. Even the Vernon Davises of the world with lots of millions of dollars, he's not on his back, but a lot of those guys, that's it. They threw it away for football money.
Yeah.
And just to be very clear, I am not a financial advisor. So I develop people. And I think the best investment is to invest on themselves. It's not like I don't agree with investments. I think that you should, but you have to really, really invest. And just
do
like
your
I
homework,
do.
yeah.
Do your homework. And I did my homework, and I'm changing my financial advisor in the next few months because I'm just not happy with how things are turning out for the last 3 years. But I didn't put all my money into one investment, right? So I use myself often in like, okay, guys, this is what you can do. This is how it works. This is what you should look for. Don't look for these big promises. Or fancy things. And if it's really fancy, go to somebody you trust that it's working for.
Yeah.
Just like basic instructions on the money. But it's not going to last. It just, you guys know. I mean, how old are you?
Going to be 31 in a few more days.
Yeah, I'm 24.
Oops. Eeks.
You will, Social Security is not enough money unless you don't spend any money.
It's true.
It's not enough. So you have to really do the planning, and you're young still. And I remember I met my husband. I was about 28, and we were in love. And we hadn't been married yet, but we were in love. And so I said, okay, well, this is where I spend my money. You have to be in love if you're going to tell people how you spend money. But and he said, wow, you pay a lot to Nordstrom every month. I said, yep, I do. And I thought, okay, here goes. And he said, okay. And he's a smart man. He said, look, why don't you pay 1/3 of that to an financial account? And mine has done pretty well. Why don't you do it in the one I've got? And use the rest for play, for at Nordstrom or wherever you go. So I did. And inside of, guys, I mean, it was like less than 10 years. So, it was 10 years.
Yeah.
But that money made like almost $50,000. I mean, I kept putting in, right? But that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I was throwing it on, scarves and belts and, dresses like that, right? It was a lot of money. And yes, it was a couple of really good years in the market, but still. And so I use myself as like, okay, you put in a little and you do it consistently and you're young, you make a lot of money. So anyway,
in time,
so there's a money story.
Fair enough.
On a low level. I'm not talking about football money, but I'm talking about money where, and then and then we used it, must have been around 10 years because then we used it as a
Great, have to wrap it up too. Let's see if it pops back up. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, good. I think what happens is when I get a thing on my phone, when I get an alarm on my phone that something came in, it knocks you guys off.
Oh.
Isn't that special? Okay,
It's funny.
great. It never did that before, but it's doing that this morning. So.
Technology
Anyway.
for you.
Exactly. All right.
But
Well,
yeah, that's all the
I-
questions we have.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate being on the show. my website is www.retiredfromsports.com. And I have a couple things on the site. One is one can download the book. It's free, and Star Power in Retirement. And then also you can take a look at what I do. It's a very cool website. I love my website. And also there's a little button if anybody of your viewers can make it to Denver. I'm doing a course there. It's very inexpensive. It's about like 3/4 of a day. And there was one other thing. Oh, there's a survey there that says, how ready are you for retirement? So I think there's 10 questions, and it just gives you percentage of, okay, how ready are you? 10% ready, 50% ready, and then some ideas on how to get yourself ready to get to the next level. So that's kind of a fun, interesting way of starting the conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was actually on her website and realized the book and sort of started in a little bit into it. So,
yeah, all that. Yeah, on the top. And I really appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Oh, no
thank you for coming on.
Sorry for all the technical difficulties, but I'm so glad we had the opportunity.
Oh, that's all right.
Oh, most technology, that's what happens.
Yeah.
It's not perfect.
You guys are very calm about it. I'm still not at all, but thank you for being so generous in your listening. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, we want to thank you for definitely taking the time, including the one random thing that sort of happened that, like, the one funny thing is, like, last week our Skype account was being funky, like Monday and that's, no, Friday. That's when I sent you that email, because it's like, I could, try to see if it'll work, but, it's a two-sided sword. Technology.
Yeah, no, it's great. I have my other thing set up in my office just down the hall. I work out of my house, and with my backdrop and all that fun stuff. But I got your email. Thank you. I thought, okay, great. We'll just do it this way. But this way was a little funky too. But it's all working. It's all good.
Oh yeah, that's like I had to go figure out how to update it. It was some weird thing, but it all worked out in the end.
It did. It did. And thanks, Matt and Jeff, for the interview. Appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. And thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Now, do you record this? I should have probably asked. Do you record this? Okay. Can you send it to me?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate it. And do you have my email address?
Yeah, I'll just have to get it off Yahoo.
Great. Perfect. All right. Well, have an amazing week.
Yeah,
We're at the beginning
too.
of it, kind of.
Yeah.
All right. Take care.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.